Hey everybody, welcome to Questions on Tap, where we drink whiskey and talk about, well, just about anything. I'm John.
And I'm Mark. And today on Questions on Tap, we're going to be going into The Drowning Child. And this is the Peter Singer version.
Sounds pretty dire, I know.
It kind of is, yeah. So the idea of this problem is that there is a man wearing a, quote, $1,000 suit, and he sees a child drowning in the ocean, being pulled away by the currents. He doesn't have time to take off his suit and save the child. Is the man morally obligated to jump into the ocean, ruin his suit, to save the drowning child?
And I think, as most people would say, the answer is yes. Of course he is morally obligated to save the child.
I think this is going to be one of those, maybe kind of rare, that me and John immediately agree on. Just baseline, I would also tend to agree that the man would be morally obligated to save the child. But just from that perspective, John, I guess why do you think he is?
I'm going to give a biblical example. So everyone's heard of the story of the Good Samaritan.
If we haven't, describe it a little bit.
Yeah, Jesus Christ in the Christian Bible tells a story of a man that's on the road that was mugged. I want to say, if I remember correctly, he was mugged. And he's injured and harmed and whole 9 yards. It's terrible.
Yeah.
And I want to say, like, I don't know if it's like a tax collector or something, passed by him and ignored him. Mm-hmm. And then a Levite, like a priest, essentially the equivalent of a priest, passed by, and like a couple people passed by because they had things to get to. And then there was a Samaritan who, in the historical context, from my understanding, the Samaritans were considered like, an enemy's too strong of a word, but they were not like a liked group of people by the community that Jesus is talking to. And the Samaritans were considered like outsiders. The Samaritan stops, takes the man, cleans up his wounds, brings him to a motel on his route, tells the owner of like the motel, like, hey, I will pay for his stay however long he's here. Here's like money. I want to say he gave money right away, and make sure that he's cared for. Any of your expenses, keep track of. When I come back this way, when I finish my business, I will pay you back however much it was. And Jesus asks who was listening, like, which one of these men out of the people that passed the man was the moral one. And
so
it was
that's where the Good Samaritan comes from?
It's a parable, yeah.
I feel like I should have known that. I did not know that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the Good Samaritan's a parable. Jesus often talks in parables and stories to explain moral truths and lessons and spiritual truths and lessons.
Okay, yeah.
And the Good Samaritan's one of the, what I'd say, the simpler ones, but is often harder to live out than we give ourselves credit for in some ways. And so you kind of look at that story, and clearly the one who Jesus is saying behaved in the moral way is the Good Samaritan. And I think this is exactly that thing. It doesn't really matter what you have going on in your life or what your reasoning is. You help the person in need.
Yeah. And honestly, I feel like the idea of it being $1,000 suit, like it could be any amount. It doesn't really matter if it's to save somebody's life. I feel like there's kind of an obligation from human to human to just, like, we all want to survive. So if you are able to, and like if this man knows you could get in, save the child, get out, and be okay, then yeah, it doesn't matter what he has on his person. Like if he even had an iPhone, his entire wallet, who cares? Like
he had $1 billion. Doesn't matter.
And like as we kind of went over, I know that we both have slightly different views on the trolley problem, but even like I said that a person's value can't be calculated. So that drowning child could do so much that it's kind of a similar idea of, yeah, if you have just money on you, screw that, save the person.
Yeah, and even like, I know some people might, if you're not religious, the Good Samaritan doesn't hold the Bible doesn't have any kind of authority, if that makes sense. Or maybe you participate in a different religion. Obviously, like, the Christian Bible is only authoritative for Christians. So I guess another point of view that you can kind of look at this from more of a Kantian perspective, which is like, make the decision that you'd want the rest of the world to make.
And I feel like that's almost how I view it in a sense.
Yeah.
Like it's not fully from like a Christian background for me. It's that, yeah, I mean, if I'm drowning, I hope someone would sacrifice $1,000 or any amount of money to save my life. I feel like if I was in that position, that's kind of how I would view it of, well, yeah, I'm going to save this person's life because I hope someone else would save mine. Kind of that just like human to human connection that I would hope we all have.
Exactly. And I think that whether you're coming from a Kantian perspective or even a utilitarian perspective or even someone like Nietzsche, who, as you listen to this podcast, you realize I hate Nietzsche so
Ooh,
much.
that's gonna be interesting. Okay.
We'll get more into that in another episode, but I guess I should say I hate Nietzsche's beliefs. I don't hate any human being. I hate Nietzsche's beliefs.
I think some of his are very fascinating.
He's a long story short, he stands for everything that I hate, and like in terms, his beliefs are everything I try and fight against.
We might do a separate episode on that. I might be intrigued. Yeah,
I think we will. That might be its own little series. The point is I think even his belief might even say that it is beneficial to save the child, or an existentialist belief would probably say the same. I think it's really hard to make like a legitimate philosophical claim that's grounded in anything to not save the child. But I think where this question gets interesting is the modifications.
Yeah, definitely.
And so I know, Mark, we kind of had one prepared. So like, what was your modification that you were thinking of?
Yeah, so my one, and I saw it in a couple of places when researching this problem, is, so say you're just sitting in front of the TV late at night, watching like TV, and you get an ad that comes across that says, call this number, spend $1,000 to save a child's life that has been stricken with poverty. Now, let's say that this person, as you were sitting in front of the TV, you research the charity, and it appears to be legit. You can't find any reason for scam. And let's say that in this context, the charity is legit. Is that person then morally obligated to donate $1,000 to save the child's life if they have the money to do so? I think that's kind of the next stage to go to of, it's not somebody diving into action to help a drowning child, but somebody simply spending money out of their own pocket to save somebody else.
Yeah, and I think these thought experiments get really interesting is when you actually push them to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
When that's the fun of it. When it's not something as practical as I'm passing down the Good Samaritan, I'm passing down the street, and I see someone in my line of sight that I can go help.
Yeah.
Where do you draw the line and when it's acceptable to not help, in a sense?
Yeah.
And I think I would say that like in a vacuum, I would still say the person is morally obligated to donate $1,000 to save the child. I mean, I would say that really in any situation, like if you know that money is going to go help to save the child, then like you should save the child.
Yeah, I think the hardest part for me just about this kind of like next step is that it's an ad on a TV, and I feel like no matter how much research I did, it'd be hard to like verify. So I'm trying to step out of like the actual practical application of this happening to me, and I feel like we kind of have to be able to take it seriously because I feel like an ad like that wouldn't really happen in the same sense. But I tend to agree. I feel like if you have the means to do so, you can like guarantee the safety of somebody else. There's some kind of obligation. But I guess what to me is interesting is like the question is framed in terms of if you have the means to do so. I think it's interesting is what does that mean? You know, if you have $1,000 to your name and that's it, how much does it kind of go down there, you know?
No, and it gets interesting. It's also like, we all say that, yeah, if your $1,000 can go help save someone, you should do it. There are tons of charities that exist in parts of the world that desperately need whether it's not necessarily, maybe it's not, life or death, but, it's about getting, not immediate, meaning like immediate existential life or death in that moment. But it can improve
quality of life.
But it's getting enough food or getting clean water. We know these things that exist that can help do that. I try to donate money to causes right now that I can, and like I have some that I'm doing right now. But like, could I be doing more? Yeah, I'll be honest. Yeah, I could be doing more. Probably should be doing more.
I would almost argue that most people, who have the means to do so, could be doing more. I guess.
Yeah, and I think that's where it gets interesting, and that's where the Good Samaritan and the drowning child gets interesting. Is that it's not just about the person. Like, you should help as much as you possibly can. That is kind of your moral obligation. And so I think in the case of donating $1,000, because I think you said the alternative was like to save the child in a poverty-stricken village.
Yeah.
If I am a single mother raising 2 kids, working 2 part-time jobs, making minimum wage, just trying to keep a roof under our heads, I would say there's less of a moral obligation for her to donate $1,000 to save a child from a poverty-stricken village, because doing so harms her own ability to provide for her own kids.
Yeah, and
so you're hurting a kid no matter what, or even if it's just yourself. If you're barely getting by and donating this money is going to literally kill you, then like it's one of those things where I don't know if I'd go as far as to say like it's wrong to donate the money, because it's not. Like clearly that's a very wonderful thing to do, but I think it's an understandable choice to say that like I literally cannot eat this week.
Yeah,
if
and
I don't have that money.
The hard part for me tends to be kind of where that line is drawn. Because as I'm thinking about it now, I'm having a very hard time coming up with like a strict example of kind of the line crossing from one area to the other. Because how much can you ask a person to sacrifice for their own life? Because yeah, like let's say I'm on my own, like I'm working a job that's like a full-time job, but it's at like a retail store, so not making a whole lot of money, and I'm getting by. But I have a little bit left over every month to put in an emergency fund or whatever that doesn't totally affect me. But if I spend that $1,000 and I have no emergency fund, and then something like, how do you define kind of having enough to do something? To me, that is a very difficult question that I'm currently contemplating.
No, exactly, because you can go up the economic ladder. Like, okay, yeah. we gave like two examples that are maybe like lower in terms of social economic scales, like lower class or maybe lower middle class or something like that. All right, we get to middle class. You're making like $65K a year. Mm-hmm. Doing, I don't know, maybe you run a flower shop and you own a business.
Like you can survive on less than that, you know?
Yeah, all of us, like, or if you're making $80K, you can live off $50K a year. Why aren't you? Shouldn't you donate?
Like you have to make some sacrifices, but you know, in this example, to save someone's life.
And so I think I don't have an answer for that. I could come up with an answer, but I don't think there's a number.
No, I don't think there is.
There's not a number, and because it's not about the amount you. In some ways, because I'm haunted. I'm going to kind of go back to a parable in Scripture. There's another parable. I apologize if I mess up the details of this. So you can fact
I'll forgive you. Don't worry.
But there's another parable where it's about donating. In this case, it's about like donate. I think they're donating money to the synagogue.
Okay.
And there's a woman who's poor and like homeless, and she gives like what would be the equivalent of like 5 pennies or something like that to the church. And then there's this rich man who comes along, and he gives like the equivalent of would be like thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Or something like that. And you can think of him as like a millionaire. And then Jesus asks, like, which out of the two do you think was the more morally righteous? And his answer was the woman who gave the 5 pennies, because she sacrificed more.
Yeah.
Or if you look at, there's another story of a man who comes up to Jesus. This is not a parable. And he says, you know, I'm a believer. I do all the things I'm supposed to do. I donate money to the poor. I do all these things. And Jesus is like, awesome. Like, that's great. Praise be to God that you do that. And he says, well, but what more can I do to be assured of my salvation? And it's kind of this foolish question. Jesus says, well, do you still have money left over? And he said, well, yeah, I have, you know, like, and he's like, well, sell all that you have.
Yeah, that's...
But what's the point of the story? Yeah. You have to look at the story. Was Jesus saying that everyone is required? Ideally, everyone would sell everything that they have and do that. But the point, in the context of the story, I'm giving a summary. The context of the story was this man was living like a good moral life and a faithful life. But he was still worried. He was trying to do this works kind of game. Like, how much do I have to work to earn this?
Yeah.
And I think that, like, in a sense, Jesus was saying if we're going to play the, like, checkbox game, where we keep track of every good thing we do, well, there's always more you could do. So keep going. But like that's not the point. In like the Christian perspective, we take that as that's not, we should do good works, but it's not about trying to earn it. You do as much as you can. And for some people that does mean sacrificing everything.
Yeah.
But maybe for others it doesn't, and they have other ways of living that out. Again, there's a balance. I don't claim to have a good answer for it, but I just think that's an interesting way to think about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's very tough. And even just like, I guess in like today's modern society of like donating to charities and just like, there's obviously common ones people can think of, but it's not, it's different than the kind of the question we phrased, because it's not as much of a guarantee, you know? Like if I donate $1,000, I can't guarantee, and the organization can't necessarily guarantee that it's saving somebody's life. It's a lot less concrete than that. So I think they have to be thinking, or like they can't kind of see the outcome in the same direct way as like this question has been phrased.
Well, and like, and here's some like another question to think about. Like, let's say that, all right, we can donate to charity. What if a solution that we believe in is the government taxing people and taking a tax that goes towards X thing? Is that all you should do? Like, that is money being, taken out of your paycheck. Is that the extent of your moral obligation?
That is actually very interesting too. Yeah.
So that's kind of another spin. Like, if there's another, we can take government out of it because we don't want to get into politics. But like, if it's already like a guarantee that maybe your company or someone is taking $1,000 out to donate to this thing, do you still have a responsibility to give more?
Yeah, I mean, that's where it's got to be so just like the position dependent, because it's like we have no idea in anyone's current situation how much $1,000 or $2,000 or any amount of money can affect them short term or long term. It's one of those that's so hard to quantify, but I think it's more about the idea of, are you obligated to help people, in a sense like that, which that's a much, that can be a larger kind of question to be asked, but I think it's an important one that people kind of think about in their own lives, in the sense of, what is your role in the larger society, I guess.
Yeah, and I think the thing to take away is not the dollar amount or whatever. I think the thing to reflect on in this problem is that, what does it look like for me and you and everyone else to live a good life and to help people? What does that look like?
Yeah. It's definitely, you got to start thinking more practically eventually, like in your own life of, okay, how can I help people? As I think that most people, should help other people, just kind of in general. Again, for me, just a lot of it's because, I want other people to help me or something like that. I don't really know why necessarily, but I think there is some obligation to like a community, to each other, that human connection. But it's hard to define.
Yeah, and I think that really gets to, what Peter Singer is asking here.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
It's really the definitions of a moral society.
Yeah, kind of like what defines that. How do you know how much is too much to sacrifice to save somebody else or to help somebody else? There's a lot of interesting things to think about, and there's also some more practical ways to apply this to your own life too, which I think is pretty interesting. Whereas like the trolley problem, I don't know if we're ever going to get in that situation.
Yeah, hopefully not.
Yeah, right.
And so I guess kind of as we're coming to a conclusion here, I guess think about ways you can help people. Think about it.
There you go.
Maybe there's something more you can be doing.
Ending on that note there.
Yeah. So thanks for checking out Questions on Tap. I know this is a bit of a shorter episode, but I think we got
And I think this is the first one we're totally agreeing on, which is interesting.
Yeah.
It's the first one, yeah.
Yeah, and I think it got a bit more philosophical, theologically going, because I think that was part of it. Yeah, anyways, thanks for listening. If you liked it, give it 5 stars. If you didn't, we're sorry.
Excellently said. Sorry, guys. Sorry to waste, 18 minutes, but
we'd prefer you didn't give it a 1 star, but if you must, you can.
Let us know,
Anyways, take it easy.
Have a good one, everybody.